Right now, Willie Eng is joining us on the KTSA Quarter Moon Plumbing AC Heating Newsline, formerly of SAPD, United States Secret Service, now the owner of Blue Armor Security and an active shooter trainer and security consultant. Willie, good to have you back with us. Several days after it happened, the country got to see the video from this commuter train in Charlotte, and we see it as people that already knew what was going to happen, as we're watching it. When you look at it through your training, and if you imagine that it's just, a scenario where you don't know what's going to happen, what stands out for you on the video of Irina and her killer?
Well, very unpredictable, right? I mean, it happens so quickly. She sat down, and I would think maybe 3 to 4 minutes after that, he just jumped out of his seat and started stabbing her repeatedly, I think 3 times. And so even the civilians in the subway didn't have time to respond. Once they realized what occurred, it was too late. They rushed to her aid. But Jack, what I find really interesting, I apologize, I haven't been able to listen to your show. I just got done with my another active shooting training for a school, is that people think this happened over the weekend.
Right.
And it didn't.
Yes.
It
happened about 10 days ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you and I have had these conversations more than we'd like. But remember when Daniel Penny, that incident occurred, you and I spoke on that. And I think we spoke on it the very next day. I think it was the morning after or the afternoon after. Mm-hmm. Because it fit the agenda, the elected officials who lived within that area, right? It fit their agenda and the outcomes they wanted to steer this as this evil Marine that harmed this poor mental ill individual. And I'm just wondering why isn't Rosie O'Donnell and everyone else jumping up on the radio right quick and doing their YouTube videos and social media in disgust of this innocent person that was butchered by this crazy guy. And again, August 22nd when this happened.
I mean, I think that's a very good question. It's also a very good question about when did we lose our ability to react to things as human beings instead of as conservatives or liberals or Republicans or Democrats. I to me, she reminds me of our kids, our wives, our girlfriends, what have you. And our sons. I mean, why are we not relating to it that way? Where's the human element? Why would anyone want to, hide it or downplay it or even make it go away simply because it's an inconvenient, narrative for you?
That's the only thing that I could assume. And you and I have had these conversations over and over again. These bad guys, these crooks, these evil people, they don't care about your voting record. They don't look at whether this person, he didn't ask her if she was Republican or Democrat, independent. He didn't ask who you pray to, who you sleep with. It's just a random act. And we have got to remove, and we say this over and over again, we sound like a broken record, but where there is truth, there's consistency. We have got to stop involving politics and public safety. We've got to stop it. Look, you got Chicago upset that the president wants to send troops down there to help protect the people of that city, the people, not party, people. And again, we keep inserting politics in this. And that's the only thing I can think of is why they suppressed this and didn't want people to know about it because it didn't fit their agenda.
I felt like in looking at that video, and I don't know if I'm off base here or not, I felt like she was kind of downplaying her appearance a little bit. Like the way we see her in the video with the cap and the pizza uniform was had the effect of making her look very nondescript. And yet the photos that her family has put out, she's a very striking and beautiful young woman. I'm wondering if you think it is a good idea for women in a situation like that to really try to does that make any difference? Is that part of your training or your advice that, hey, try to tone it down the way she did? It didn't work in her case, but was she doing everything she could to minimize her, her profile?
She did look quite different than the photos the family is sharing
Right?
now, and I did notice that right away. As a matter of fact, I was wondering if I was looking at two different stories
Right.
when I was looking
Right.
at the photos that they were showing and versus how she was looking in the subway. And look, we don't know, right? We can only speculate. Maybe she didn't feel safe to be on the subway, and that was one way to play it. To your point, play it.
That's what I'm
down.
wondering. Yeah.
And because she didn't feel safe, she figured, well, maybe if I wear a cap and wear loose clothing and wear a T-shirt, I won't get the attention, the unwanted attention. That's a good point, and that's a possibility. But again, I don't know. The outcome would have been different. This guy it was a crime of opportunity. He saw at the moment that she was vulnerable. She had her back to him, and he took advantage of that.
She might also just have been, that might just been the way she dresses for work too, for all we know. But I in the old days, you would have said, well, try not to call attention to yourself, men and women, by the way, right? You would have said, keep a low profile, don't make eye contact. Willie, do you think she was a target because she was simply the closest one to him? Or how does that look to you? And again, I know we're speculating.
Yeah, I think it was just an opportunity. I'm not sure if it would have been any different if it was a different female dressed differently, a different ethnicity. I don't know if it would have changed if it was a male sitting there. This guy had mental illness. This is a guy who was just released in January. Right. Who dialed 911, was abusing 911. When they apprehended him or identified him and took him into custody, he was claiming that some devices were planted in him and they were causing him to do different things and control his movements. This guy had mental illness, and the judge releases him and says, look, you have mental illness. Clearly, you've been arrested 14 times. You've been violent towards your own family, to strangers. But if you promise to show up, here, sign this piece of paper, and you promise to show up, I'm going to let you go without having to make bond or anything else. That's ridiculous. And then the possible connection of her and the mental health task force that's there. That's clearly, an issue with her being part of those two organizations.
I also think we're now living in a time where a lot of the old advice was logical, like, the way you carried a purse across your body, not easily, grabbed or plucked. The thing about the cap, looking down, don't make eye contact. Those were for days when you were trying to avoid the quote unquote professional pickpocket or purse snatcher or mugger. Now you're going into an atmosphere or an environment, Willie, where you have randomness, you have people that are profiling you by your gender, by your race. You could do everything, quote unquote, right by the old rules and still be somebody's perfect target. That's right.
I was looking at this video and I was trying to think, what else could she have done? The only thing differently she could have done, and we're not criticizing her, right? We're learning from these types of incidents. So when we do training, we could talk about it, is not sit your back to anyone. So in other words, sit your back against the wall of the subway. So that way, if any threats are coming towards you, you'll see it. You won't be blindsided. Because I was just teaching that today, about going to restaurants. Have someone, if you're by yourself, always sit facing the door so you see if there's a threat coming in to the restaurant or to an entertainment center. Try to sit with yourself. That's what law enforcement do, right? So that's the only thing I can see that. But would it change the outcome? Who knows? I don't.
That is very good advice. I think a lot of us follow even now. But Willie Eng's company is Blue Armor Security Services at bluearmorsecurity.com. Willie, always appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right. It's